Hey, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. Today we are talking about hurdling adversity because, as you know, or maybe you don't, the speaking business is not exactly a straight line. Personally, I've been writing a lot about failure of the past few years, and I found the perfect person to discuss this with, John Register. Welcome, John.
Jane, thanks for having me on your show. I can't wait. You are just one of the rock stars in the industry. So everything you do for people just elevates and lifts the speaking community. So thank you for what you do.
Oh, you're so kind. Well, I am so interested to dig into your story because it is a story. So, start at the beginning and kind of take us to where you are today in terms of your speaking business, but how did this all get started?
Yeah. Well, as professional speakers, we all have a journey, a story that we are using, usually to get into the business, right? We think we have something to say, we want to say it, whether you're a motivational, inspirational speaker, or whether you're speaking to business and corporate clients, it really doesn't matter. There's a story, an impetus that actually gets a story and started. And mine really came when I was working for the United States Army at the Community and Family Support Center right after I had injured my left leg and I was trying to do a rebirth, a reset to my life. And I
Okay.
was taking these individuals, these service members, down to these TARE missions, these total Army involvement with recruiting. So they're
Mm,
trying to put troops in boots.
right.
And I would have these athletes. I was their sports specialist and kind of like their manager. And I would do this kind of dog and pony show where I would be the MC, and then I would introduce the next act, and then that would be the MC again, and I would tell a quip or a story or a joke or something, point to my leg, ha ha ha, and all these things was getting the attention of the principals because the recruiters, being no dummies, they started calling me when I went back to Virginia, where I was living at the time, and saying, "Hey, who was the one-legged guy that was down there telling these kids about this journey and emceeing the program? They're still talking about him." So
Wow.
they called me up and asked, "Would you come on down? Would you be able to do like a 40-minute presentation in front of the audience, these kids?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." Then they said, "Well, how much do you charge for that?" And
Don't
I,
you love that question for the first time? You're like,
what? I'll get back to you. And let me let me figure this one out because you get paid to speak. What? So
That's
that was the beginning of this journey. And for me, I made reference to being an amputee, and
yeah.
I was a world-class hurdler. I
Okay,
was on
let's go all the way
all the
back
way back.
to the beginning.
What?
So you
Okay.
grew up, you were an athlete.
Yeah, I was an athlete, but I was also a musician. So
Okay,
we often have these well-rounded things, and they come back to us later in life. And so,
interesting.
yes, I was an athlete, played football, played baseball, ran track and field, earned a scholarship to the University of Arkansas, became a four-time track and field All-American, went to two Olympic trials. Parallel to that, I was in the Schola Cantorum. I was singing at the University of Arkansas in the highest level choir. I got in there in my freshman year. They never take freshmen into that choir, but I was trained so well that they wanted me in the choir. So here's a parallel thing that's going on. I also communicated very well. I was doing speeches and stuff in high school. So all these things are some of all of our experiences that get us to the point later on of when we may launch off into this speaking career.
Okay, so you choose a sport, you
Yep.
pick a lane, and what is your sport that you're going to do?
The sport becomes track and field.
Track and
And so inside of track and field, there are multiple disciplines, and I become a world-class hurdler, high
okay,
hurdler. So I went to the Olympic trials in the hurdles in 1988, and
right?
then so that means I made the Olympic qualifying standard. That's what it means for the United States. And I also competed in the long jump at the same trial. So two sports, high hurdles and long jump. And then later on after that, I also ran the 400-meter hurdles in my second Olympic trials, one time around the track over 10 obstacles, spaced
Mm.
35 meters apart.
And hurdles are not easy, and something
Oh, it's
happened.
the easiest race in the world.
I've actually run hurdles. I was a track and field girl,
Oh,
but
nice.
I could not like me today, 20 minutes on the treadmill and I'm done. So I could not, I don't even put it up a level. So, okay. Talk about what happened. Was it athletics and then military, and then you were coming back to athletics and you had the accident? What happened?
So the accident happened when I was serving in the United States Army. After college, I joined the military to
Yeah.
compete on the Army's world-class athlete program team.
Okay. So you
So
were
that's
still an athlete, only in the
in the
military.
military.
Okay.
And then, of course, there's all these parallel paths, right? So Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm came up, and I was diverted off of this team to actually go serve in the Gulf War, the first Gulf War. And I spent 6 months in the desert, came back without a scratch, didn't have, any issues. But my biggest issue was I wasn't training during that time. So therefore I lost my high hurdle acumen. And that's the reason for switching to the 400-meter hurdles the one time around the track.
Okay.
And in my fifth race ever, I finished up 17th in those trials. And so my coach and I said, okay, let's do another 4 years because we have a plan now that we can execute against to make the Olympic team.
So you're heading for the Olympics is your goal.
Mhm.
And what happens?
So on May 17th, 1994, at 5:29 in the afternoon, I'm one of the world's fastest men in the hurdles, top 20 in the world, top 8 in the United States, and the wind's blowing hard in Hayes, Kansas. I go across a hurdle, I misstep it, I land awkwardly. The awkward landing causes a dislocation to my left knee, a severing of the artery behind the kneecap, and 7 days later, I'm faced with a choice: keep my leg, use a walker or a wheelchair for the rest of my life, amputate my leg, use a prosthesis for the rest of my life.
And you were married at the time,
Yep.
correct? And your
Right.
wife and you and your wife make the decision that you're going to let your leg go. You're going to
Yeah.
have it
Well,
amputated.
well, she didn't make the decision, so she always tells me that.
Oh,
It's what
what
she
did
said.
she say? What did she say?
So she actually, the I was in so much pain. It was really the pain that spoke.
Yeah.
And I looked at the doctor and said, I know it has to be amputated. And so she's like, wait, she's like, what? The whole family was like, what? Wait a minute, wait, time out, wait. And
Yeah.
I just went straight for it because it was going to probably be amputated later on. And she realized it was my choice. Now, where she really comes into the picture is, after we do something, after we make a commitment to something, that's when the work begins. And
Mm,
sometimes we haven't measured the cost of what it takes to actually become successful. We now get on this other side of the equation, have to unlearn some things in order to relearn. For me, relearning how to walk, relearning how to do some things. And in that moment, we can go down this downward spiral, kind of a woe is me almost. And my wife saw me struggling of my identity. Who am I now?
yeah.
Still going to stay around? Is my son going to still see me?
Yeah.
And so she comes in and says, John, we're going to get through this together. This is really just our new normal. So
Yeah.
she says that to me in 1994. And of course, the term now is overused, but I use it back again and bring people back to original intent. So therefore, if you can take a concept that people might be overusing and bring back to original intent, you can overtake the conversation and become a thought leader inside of that because it works and gels with your
Tell
story.
me what concept you're speaking of.
Okay, so the concept is the new normal.
The
Most
new
people like
normal. Okay, I hear you.
sick of
Yeah.
that term, right? And so new,
For
and
you, I mean, it was so legit, right?
yeah, it was really the thing that would cause us to
How
that would
ironic was
yeah.
it for you that you are in the military and you're serving on the battlefield and you come home unscathed and then have this accident happen on a track and field? Is that
Right.
like the weirdest thing to you that
It is on the surface, right? On the surface, it's crazy because I'm the only one that's had this accident, according to Track and Field News USA, when they did the history
really?
of history of it all. However, it's another talking point, kind of like that new normal, because most people think, when I ask audiences, how many people do you think in America were injured on the battlefield during the 20 years in Afghanistan? And I get numbers like 30,000, 50,000. In reality, it was 1,500 that
Really?
had amputations. So it's very small. The media blows it up, but
Yeah.
there are a lot more amputation that happen inside the military, but it's outside of theater.
Interesting.
70% of injuries happen outside of theater. So I became one of the statistics of the 70% that were outside. So that's a talking point for me to say
Yeah.
sometimes the thing that we look at in the media is not the thing that we understand. In fact,
Shining-
it's actually something else.
Not shining the light in the right area.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Okay, so You go out and you are speaking in the athletic division of the military to bring in new recruits,
Mhm.
and they say, "Hey, we're going to pay you for this."
Right.
You go out and you take your first speaking engagement. How much did you charge them for that very first one? Do you remember?
So I went to a person that was inside the National Speakers Association at the time, and her name's Bonnie St. John.
Oh gosh, Bonnie
Yeah, she
John.
becomes my mentor in the business,
Awesome.
and she gives
There's
me
no better one.
everything. And I think it was $1,500 I asked for.
That sounds about right. I say in the Wealthy Speaker 2.0 that you're in the game at $1,500. This is
Yeah,
just kind of like the baseline that and
right.
there's only place to go. Okay, so let's just fast forward to your business today,
Yeah.
John.
Hmm.
Your website did very, very well in our best website contest. It was nominated to the finalists and really did.
I was shocked. So,
Well, it was kind of how we got introduced to each other.
yeah.
I was really excited about that. And I thought, okay, well, I really wanted to talk to you a little bit more. So fast forward to today and give me a
Mhm.
snapshot of what's going on in your speaking business today.
Yeah, lots of things happening because as a professional speaker in that world, I got really clear on what I deliver. And I think that was, I was really ambiguous before kind of getting to this moment where I'm right now. And COVID was another place to dive deeper into the content that I deliver instead of becoming a coach and then a speaker and all these other things. I really
Yeah,
went deep in my content because at the end of the day, the vision that we have is to inspire worlds with our company, Inspired Communications International.
yeah.
And to inspire worlds, we have to reach out and touch other individuals, other entities. It's not to inspire the world, it's to inspire worlds. So our worlds are intersecting now, and so now I have entree into yours and you have entree into mine, and we can expand. The way we measure this is by echoes that come back to us. So ripples go out, but echoes come back, and those echoes can come from anywhere. So the mission then is, when everybody's heard about the hurdles, is to is to work with business professionals to hurdle adversity, amputate fear, embrace a new normal mindset to win life's medals. Because right as a most times when an Olympian or somebody that's climbed Mount Everest is trying to relate a story, they only get to the story part and they don't tell us the point of why they're trying to do it. I want you to win the medals that are in your life at your level. So we put that and bake it right into our mission statement. And so we
I love
speak to corporations, and with our State Department, we travel the globe trying to um, implement that strategy, the concepts into at the baseline level of leadership and at the executive level to cause those ripples of change. The biggest thing we're really trying to do, Jane, is to get people to commit to the jumps that they know they have to make in life. So I'm not trying, I'm one, I love teams. There's nothing wrong with teams. I was on teams and we did very well, won national championships. But where I'm really focused is on that individual. That's my target market, is the person that's about to commit to a jump or just has to make a jump, the hurdle that's right in front of them, and then what they do right after they take the hurdle. That's the goal and the person I'm trying to get after.
It's interesting. We've been talking a lot about the two secrets of the speaking industry lately. And it's only two things. One is belief. And that's all about what you're talking about, making the leap. And then the second thing is consistent action. So first you need to believe that what your goal is really possible, and then you just simply need to take consistent action in order to get there. And
Right.
there's lots of things along the way. So give us an example of the types of companies that are hiring you today, and are you doing just keynotes for them? What's your business model look like?
It's primarily keynotes. However, we have done some work around uh, things that will come up in society that I might have a life experience around. For example, being an African American man inside of the United States of America, and George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor are killed. And in that, we're having these conversations, and people are calling to say, tell me more about this. I really do want to learn. Now, I don't do the work for folks. What I do is I share an experience and I give a framework generally baked in disability, because when we talk about employee resource groups, business resource groups, or the entire DEI process, disability encompasses all of those, but it's the least one that's talked about. So we do a little bit of training on that, or things in disability equity as well. But the keynotes are really with companies like Southwest Airlines, KPMG, big companies like that, top Fortune 250 companies, and then with our State Department. I love working with our State Department because if you think about it, you get a chance to go around the world. And one of the things I saw was I was speaking in I was in Dubai talking about disability, and there was another kind of well-known football coach who was going to talk about teams to our State Department underneath the last administration. So it was Secretary Pompeo,
Mhm.
and the word got back that I was doing this thing, and I was connecting the business community with the State Department community that was over there, our ambassador in charge of affairs, and they took out that football coach and inserted me to talk
Oh,
about the team concept. So I went to talk to all of our ambassadors, all of our charge of affairs, and the Ben Franklin room in Washington, D.C., sitting next to, Secretary Pompeo.
that's
So it's not a
cool.
brag thing. It's like saying when you
No
get
money.
clear on who you are, you'll find yourself in some pretty interesting
That's
rooms, right?
that's
So
really amazing.
yeah,
And to go back to the DEI space,
yeah,
it's very interesting for you to weave your existing ideas of creating a new normal around like culture. How can we
right,
create a new, better normal
right,
that is more advanced in this space? So many things, so many things.
yeah, never
Talk
ends.
a little bit. Well, it sounds to me like you're doing really, really well, John, and I'm very excited for you. But I'm sure it hasn't been a straight line for you.
And
Tell us about your biggest mistake that you made in the speaking business.
okay, where do you want to start?
Just give me one. We only have
Okay,
we only have 40 minutes, so let's.
okay, I'll give you the biggest one I made. I think the greatest lesson at first that I learned, I'll tell you in two different kind of, I'll package this short in two different stories. The first one, I took a speaking engagement that I never should have taken. So
Yeah.
I was out there doing it, and I really wasn't saying anything. I didn't have my content down. I was still, kind of pushing and trying to understand who I was in the moment. But I took an engagement I never should have done. It was an engagement with a government entity. They wanted customer service, and I thought I could just morph and put my packaged stuff into this customer service experience. And for 55 minutes, it was the worst
Yeah.
time of my life, and I knew I was missing it. I just wanted to give them their money back, right? It was absolutely horrible. So and then we do things like that, and so what do we learn from the experience, right? We never want to do that again. So how do
Right.
we prepare for it? And so quickly following on the heels of that presentation was another one I did. And I thought I was in the moment, I was going to be over prepared and all this other stuff, and I was hitting it. I thought, I mean, I'm doing my best stuff and I got this really good. I'm still not to the place where I am today, and and today I won't be where I am in the future. We're always growing.
Oh,
So so I'm at this group. I'm speaking for a pharmaceutical company down in Florida, and these are like $250,000, $300,000 earners, and I'm in here, the guy, because this lady sat next to me, that's their team leader on an aircraft, and wants me to come and speak, and I know I'm giving good stuff, right?
mhm.
At this point, I know I'm giving good stuff,
You're laying
but
down the gold.
nothing. It's like
Cricket.
crickets, crickets. And so after it's over with, people are coming up and sporadically saying, "Oh, that was really good," and stuff. And so I just thought it was flatline bombed. Another one. Holy cow, what is happening? And I just
Yeah.
had this other one with this government, now this one. And so I didn't ask the question. I should have asked the question. That's another mistake I made, is to just ask the question when you're in that moment. Did I miss it? Do we get it? Give me some feedback right now. And I didn't do that. And so always ask the question, because 10 years later, when this woman who brought me in to that organization, she reached out, found my new email address, contacted me and said, "I've switched to another company. Would you please come in and deliver that same presentation?"
And you're like,
And for
okay.
10 years, 10
So
years, I was like, that was horrible.
so you thought it was horrible, but it was not horrible. The audience just didn't emote the way that you were anticipating that they might.
Right. So I got the courage up to ask her. I said, the lady's name, and I said, when you called me, I thought you were calling me 10 years later to ask for your money back. Right. And she said, no, what happened is I had these high level performers and you were light years ahead of them
Oh,
in what you were delivering. So that's not a brag thing. What that means is I have to slow down on my content,
read the room, see
read the
what's going
room,
on.
let
Yeah.
them breathe with it. Because if I
Sometimes
just
I'll
go
even
ahead.
look at somebody and say, "Hey, it looks like you're really thinking deeply about this. Tell me what you're thinking right now." And that informs me where to go next because if people are looking at you like deer in the headlights, you have to dig in and say, "What's happening? Are you processing?" Yes,
Right.
I'm keep going back to what you just said about this. Oh, okay. Well, let's dive into that a little bit more. Like, I
Absolutely.
love it when you find out why there is a look on their face. Because do not assume that you know what the look is about. Actually, I want to tell a story because one of my clients had this whole I kind of had to talk her down a little bit before a presentation because she overheard a conversation where the meeting planner was getting guff about hiring her from the muckety mucks. And so she was worried that they didn't actually want her there, but the meeting planner had set it up. So in the presentation, she sees them and they look bored and they look like they're on their phones. And she thinks, oh boy, I don't have them. So I had said, we're just going to step over them and we're going to be there to provide value for the audience, which is what
Mhm.
she did in the moment, only later on to find out they were texting each other, whoa, she's brilliant, where did she come from, and all of this praise. And
Right. Yeah.
so you never know what's actually going on. Do not
That's
assume
right.
that you know what's happening in the audience.
Ever. And that's so when I give advice, when someone comes to me and they're asking how do you become a speaker, right? I say there are action steps you have to do in order to understand this entire game, and that's one of them right there, right? So first I'll say, yeah, get into Toastmasters. So because that's like the scales, or me playing the cello, it's the scales. You
Hmm.
just learn that way, right? The second thing is you join the National Speakers Association. The
Hmm.
reason why? Because they don't teach you how to speak, they teach the business of how to grow a speaking business.
Or
Third,
CAPS, which is the Canadian
or
version.
and caps, right? Or the Global Speaker Federation, right?
Yeah,
So cover the world.
yeah,
And then the third thing is you probably want to join an improvisation troupe,
yeah.
just because of that moment, because it will never work out the way you want it to. Something always is going to happen, and if you can use that as an offer and a gift to you to expand to everyone else. So those are the kind of three things I
Great.
suggest,
And I hope you tell
to
them
get
that
there.
they need to read The Wealthy Speaker
And the
2.0.
wealthy speaker, you got to read this wealthy speaker, of course, the
That's the
wealthy speaker book.
next
Yeah.
step.
No, I mean, it's because those are the resources that are out there in order to help you shorten the learning curve. So there's a lot of things that we can put into our arsenal that helps us get down the road faster. And
Yeah.
the final thing is you got to practice. You got to go out there and actually do it, because I see so many people coming to conferences and things, and they're just kind of spinning. They got the information, they just spin. They come to the next conference and they spin. They don't put the action behind it. That's why you have to take the hurdle. You attack the hurdle that's in front of you. So just do it. Put yourself out there. Make it happen.
Love it. We're talking about hurdling adversity in your business. If there was something that you wish you would have done sooner, what would it have been?
Hire an assistant
Uh, Started to
quickly.
take off the, $30 an hour jobs off of your plate and put them
That's right.
onto somebody else's.
Yep. Hire an
How many
assistant, then
years,
probably after
how
that, get
many
a PR
years do you
person.
think you waited too long?
I've well, so I have to. That's not an easy question for me to answer, because I was working a dual job. I was working in the daytime with the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and in the evening time I was working on my speaker business from 2012. So I was kind of doing these things trying to earn the certified speaking professional, because I would have built a business. So in that time period, I'm not sure if I would have handled an assistant, but maybe, I don't know. So maybe 2012 is an answer. But
Right.
when I started in 2019, when I was released from the United States Olympic Committee and went into my business full time, I believe I waited about 6 to 7 months to hire somebody to come in, and I should have hired them right away. So I would say 6 or 7 months too long,
Okay.
because I need to be focusing, like you said, on the 1,500, 3,000, 5,000, $10,000 opportunities
Yeah.
rather than $30 work, right? Yeah,
Exactly. I think a lot of people would probably agree that they've made that exact same mistake.
yeah,
Talk about a little bit about how you were to thrive. And by the way, your whole new normal speech and that idea is so perfect for right now because no, nothing is going to go back to the way it was. So we do
no,
need to understand what the new normal really is today. Talk about during the pandemic how you maneuvered and not only, survived, but thrived.
yeah. So the pandemic is interesting.
Mhm.
So I heard a person say, a woman came in from the distant future in 2050 back to 2020, March of 2020, and she met Jane. Jane, oh my gosh, Jane! She comes in her spaceship. What year am I in? Oh, you're in March of 2020. And she goes, oh my gosh, the first year of the pandemics.
Oh, yes, multiple. Yeah.
Multiple. So that shifted my thought process. So the first thing I did as an athlete, you surround yourself with the people that will push you forward and believe in your success, and you can elevate each other. So I got the negative groups out. That was they were the first to go, and I inserted myself into people that were looking for the opportunities despite the obstacle. It's what I say in my speeches. So I started enacting every single thing that I was telling other people to do into my business. And I feel and I believe that a lot of speakers, they began checking out because they didn't know what to do.
Well, they
But you've been
started
telling
looking
people what
for
to do,
somebody else. If they were stuck in fear mode,
right?
they would look for other people to back them up and say, "You're having a rough time, aren't you? You're having a rough time." And then they could say, "Well, all of us are having a rough time," and
Absolutely.
they feel better about that. But when you made that shift, and
Yeah.
so I was there for the first week or two, talking to my husband about how we might need to sell the house and everything. I mean,
You have the moment.
took me a couple of minutes. I had a moment,
Then
but
you have the
then it
freak
was
out
like
moment.
when I decided, so when my belief
Yep.
came back, that people need me now more than ever was my belief.
Right.
When that came back, it was like flipping a switch. And then I sought out other people who were also thinking about where's the opportunity here
Absolutely.
and let us steer our groups to them. So my buddy Chris West, video
Yep.
narrative,
Yep.
you
Yep.
probably know Chris. He said, "Come on, Jane, let's do a 4-week branding boot camp. Everybody needs this right now." So
Yep.
we did this brand camp. That was so much fun, and he was a little ahead of me in his like mindset. I had to catch up. Like week 2, I think I showed up, but and then I started to do other things with other people who are in the industry doing things like me. We all teamed up and we want it to be the voices of good for people,
Right.
to lead them through this difficult time and to show them where the opportunities were. And so
Absolutely.
how much virtual work have you done? I wanted to just make a
So
note that when you
yeah,
try.
well, I've done a lot of virtual work, and I wasn't turning anything away. Not whether it could pay or not pay. It was not in that mindset of scarcity. It was a mindset of what I deliver because it was needed, as you said, in this time, even more so. So I really got a little bit chippy with inspirational, motivational speakers that checked out. I said,
Yeah,
because if you're telling your folks beforehand that this is how you get out of these tough situations,
overcome
and you
adversity.
can't overcome the adversity,
Yeah.
I think you're in the wrong business, right? And now I'm really chippy with some bureaus that are bringing those same people back that couldn't make it through this time, and inserting them back into and playing the card again. You can't do that. What are you going to tell them during this time that you had, that you checked out? So
Yeah.
you have to be able to come in, and the new normal mindset really is around this concept that the new normal is not a destination at all. We don't arrive there. It's only a plateau by which we grow.
That's
New is
good.
no prior point of reference. How many of us ever lived through a pandemic? None of us. So why are we trying to use old things, old systems to put into a new box to get a different result? That's the definition of insanity. So what I did was very similar. I sought out individuals who could offer value and add value to me and believed in my vision that I had, and that could elevate me because they were holding me accountable week after week to the things I said I was going to accomplish. So virtual, yeah, that was on the table. Hybrid, I did a hybrid session like within inside of 4 weeks, that they
Yeah.
flew me out to another location to go in a
Beautiful.
room that was like, just two camera people, and then I'm talking on, on my content, and then
I
they flew me back, right? So, and on that day, I did that. I was in San Diego. I was doing a SHRM conference in Washington D.C. I was doing another conference, two conferences over in what was it? Another university, Rhode Island University, and I was sleeping in the bed I was in San Diego. So I said, I'm about to 4x my business.
So
That's what.
don't tell me it's hard out there. There are people out there who are doing it and making it happen. And I just want to do a little side note because I'm looking at you. We have this out on YouTube visually if people want to see it. But you're in a hotel room
Right.
and you've got your headset on, so you've got good quality of sound and everything. But you brought a personal picture. So you're sitting in a
Yeah.
beautiful chair with a nice lamp on it, standard hotel room stuff. But you've got a family picture behind you.
Yeah.
And so I don't know really where you're tuning in from. And if you're willing to just take things on the road that will make you feel at home wherever you are, you're going to shine no matter if you're in, on the 18th floor overlooking the garage. It doesn't matter.
Or
This is
SeaWorld.
or SeaWorld as it may have. Now, that's really a great idea. When did you start putting the picture in your traveling engagements that you were doing from the road?
I've done that since when I went to the military and I went to war. So
Hmm.
there was always a memento of my family in
Hmm.
some form. Um, just to give me the reminder of what I'm doing this for. And I want them with me. I want their presence, their essence with me. So this picture, of course, my wife and I, we went to a friend. So she was a friend of mine who helped me build out a program, and she got married and she invited us to come to her wedding. It was a total blacked out wedding with, social blackout. So no cell phones, no nothing in there, but we snuck a picture of ourselves after the wedding was over, in this place. So don't tell her. But it was, I do that. Even when I go to a conference, if I'm at a table, I will set my family like in a picture frame right up there. This is just on my iPad, and I just pulled up a nice picture that I can always kind of take a glance, and while we're talking, Jay and I can just kind of look at my wife Alice and remember the time she told me, we will get through this together. This is just our new normal.
Okay, so let's just have a little reality check here. We're dealing with a pandemic, or maybe the ends of it, or pandemics, we don't know. Can we talk about what you learned during war that might bring some perspective to, you know, overcoming hurdles
Yeah.
in the speaking world? Okay, so I had a faux pas last week. I wrote about it. It'll come out in the thing, how to learn from failure. I write one of these articles at least once a year, sometimes multiple times. And so I had a faux pas where I showed up for the first time in 20 years to an event that all the other people were coming to at another time. So we were not on the same page in terms of times. There was a miscommunication and blah, 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 blah. And when I think about in that moment how upset I was, but yet I had a few people on the line with me, so I had to hold it together. But when I think about how upset I was, it doesn't take me long to say, perspective, Jane. In the big scheme of things, when two people misalign in terms of the times and dates, how big of a deal really is that compared to war, compared to what's going on in the world right now? As we tape this, Russia's just invaded Ukraine. I
Right.
mean, there are such bigger fishes to fry.
Yeah.
When you make a mistake in your business, how does this give you perspective, John?
Well, I think it's all about the preparation. And when we prepare for war, we drill and drill and drill so that when we get there, that things will work out to the best advantage. And then the first shot is fired and everything goes to pot, after that. However, there are some things we can learn from that, like you're saying, with the perspective, in that, do people die when we make a mistake in our business. Some businesses may be, but in my business, not too many. But in that case, right?
I'm always
So
saying to my team, look, there really are no speaker emergencies. Like that's the group we cater to.
yeah, yeah,
There really are no
it's
speaker emergencies.
not too bad. I mean, there I
Somebody
had
not
a
being able to make an engagement, that's an emergency. We'll deal with
yeah,
that.
right,
But really there are in terms of being a coach to a speaker, there are really no emergencies.
right.
So perspective.
So there's a big perspective shift there, right? So the other thing I think what I bring, the context I bring to that is we see in war what we don't really see at home. And here's what I mean by that. The media will tell us one thing depending upon which channel we might be listening to, which is very different than the narrative that might be going on in the theater. So for example, when we talk about I'm talking about Desert Storm now, we're talking about disrupting supply chains. What that means is there is a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old kid who's not going to get any food because we're going to cut off the supply, and they're coming up to your vehicle asking for food to eat.
Mm,
That's how it plays out over there. And so we don't understand that. We just say, yeah, cut the supply chains. But we don't understand the ripple effects. So
yes.
in our business, we have to understand the ripple effects of what we do can cause huge things. So if I know that I'm part of supply chain for the speaker bureau or for the conference professional that's putting that conference together,
Right.
what can I do to make sure that I'm not causing friction in his or her
Yes.
life? That's what
Yes.
I need to be thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. And I just knew that you would have some lessons that you would have come from the battlefield that say, um, what we're dealing with, what we're facing on a day to day. Yes, with the pandemic, it has been rough on people, it's been rough on mental health.
Hmm.
But I think about all the people who have come back with
Yep.
PTSD and all of the things that these families of people who have served in the military have gone through,
Yeah.
the members and their families.
I
Um,
think, Jane, there's another thing, right? And that is I'm talking about Desert Storm as a past experience. So
yes.
the past experience means we will get through it, right? There is an end date that's coming. We might
Yeah.
not be able to see it, but we're closer to it than yesterday. And I
Yeah.
think we need to keep that in perspective rather than, oh my gosh, another day in this freaking pandemic, right? So that's a negative downward spiral where if I said, yeah, but I think we probably are halfway through it or at least more, I can see the hope that's on the other side that you've been talking about.
We've got to stick with that hope. And we've got to believe that we, as speakers, we have to believe that we have value for people that will help them in this moment.
Yes, yes.
You've got to tie it to that. And we know that there's a lot of business going on out there, and we know that those businesses still need to drive their projects forward in all of the various spaces and all of the new initiatives. I'm thrilled to see some of the new initiatives
Yeah,
that corporate has taken on, and a lot of my clients in the DEI space are hot right now, and I love
yeah.
seeing that. And John, you've been absolutely wonderful to talk to. If people would like to connect with you in some way, how would you suggest that they do that?
I do most of my work and out there is on LinkedIn.
I was
And
going to
so
say that. Yeah.
yeah, I do a lot of work on LinkedIn
We
and
met on LinkedIn,
we
actually.
we did. And so yeah, I
Okay.
adore LinkedIn. So
Go
uh
find John
yep.
Register on LinkedIn. We're going to put a link to your website in the
Yep.
show notes. Anything else we should put out there?
Yeah, I think with inside the show notes, the website will have all of those channels on it, and then the link tree will as well. So that will actually dive you deeper. So linktree.com/John F Register gets you everything that I'm kind of up to on the social scene.
Okay, we'll have Monica put that in the show notes as well. John Register, thank you for your time today. And
Thank you,
I
Jane.
would say thank you for your service, but I live in Canada, so I would say on behalf of the people of America, thank you for your service as well. And thank you for
Well,
being such an amazing role model, really,
yeah,
with overcoming diversity. This is fantastic.
absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate everything that you do.
Awesome. And with that, we all say, see you soon, wealthy speakers. Bye for now, everyone.